Rugby's greatest rivalry, live, only on SuperSport.
Hello everyone and welcome to the What Goes on Tour vodcast, the first edition of 2026. And you might be wondering, well, why are we doing a What Goes on Tour episode when we're not actually on tour? Well, we've taken a bit of license, a bit of liberty, because the All Blacks are on tour. And for every week of the greatest rivalry tour, we will be doing 2 episodes, one on a Wednesday, one on a Saturday, of the What Goes on Tour vodcast. And what an opportunity, 30 years on from the last tour by the All Blacks to South Africa, to have 2 people alongside who were an integral part of that tour, Justin Marshall and Kobus Wiese. I think we'll start with the visitor, Kobus. Justin.
We are well mannered.
We are well mannered. It's great to have you back. I know you've been back many times, Marshy, but what an incredible memory for you. You'd only had 5 games for the All Blacks under your belt. You were on a plane to South Africa for a 3-test tour plus a Tri-Nations game. It was an incredible time in your career.
Yeah, it certainly was. Like, bring back great memories to have the All Blacks replicating what we did in 1996. For me, I was a very young All Black. I'd only pulled the jersey on for the first time the year before. But to come out here and experience what it's like to play the Springboks in South Africa on their home soil over a test match series was something pretty special. I remember the feeling in the camp around us trying to achieve something no All Black team had ever achieved before historically. You know, no All Black side had managed to win a series in South Africa, and I know that it wasn't lost on us how difficult a task it was going to be. So I think one of the classics is after the game at Loftus, the great Don Clark was at that game, and I remember him coming into the changing room and he was in tears. And a lot of the guys were exhausted, but he was, because he recognised that we'd done something that he wasn't able to do, nor any other All Black.
Kobus, there was some extra spice in that series as well. As I mentioned, there was a Tri-Nations test in Cape Town, the first ever edition of the Tri-Nations that year in 1996, and the All Blacks won that. But it was coming off the back of a 1995 Rugby World Cup victory for the Springboks at Ellis Park, the first time that you had ever faced New Zealand as a Springbok. And so many Springboks, Kobus, say you make 2 debuts for South Africa, your Springbok debut and your debut against the All Blacks.
It's true. I mean, when we toured New Zealand in '94, I had to come back with a torn knee ligament. So my tour was cut short, disappointingly. Something I've dreamt of since I grew up in Namibia. You know, lying on I said to somebody this morning, lying on the carpet, listening to the radio with my dad, when the Boks play in New Zealand. You know, and thinking, and then seeing the All Blacks play for the first time live. I was an under-11 guy playing for a Griquas under-11 side when the great side of Grant Batty, Sid Going, Brian Williams, Brian Law played Northwestern Cape, can you believe it, in Uppington. There was about 100,000 people, probably only 5,000, but it looked like 100,000. But that just again underlined to me as a youngster, and I watched these men in black in black playing, and the aura and dreaming that I one day want to be blessed to measure up against them, because that's what we do. Us and the All Blacks, we measure ourselves against each other. And Fitzy told me more than once, it was after a few beers, so I take a bit of tongue in cheek, but we don't regard ourselves as true All Blacks, and Justin can maybe back us up. They don't regard themselves as true All Blacks if they don't play the Springboks, and we are exactly the same. Our absolute ultimate measure is the All Blacks, and I wasn't able to play them because we in '94, and then '95 came, and then '96, you know, and I just came back from an injury with that Durban game and then the Loftus game, which was a decider. You know, we pulled the one at Ellis Park though, so maybe that's a great omen for coming Saturday.
Oh well, I know that the chat in our changing room was we didn't want to go to Ellis Park to try and win the series. You know, all the chat in that changing room and during the week was all about we need to get it done today. You know, whatever it takes, whatever you've got left in your body and your lungs, you know, you've got to exhaust yourself to win it here, because we knew if it's at all possible, if this is at all possible, given the man sitting right next to me, somehow the Springboks grow a little bit taller at Ellis Park, puff their chests out a bit more, and
the oxygen gets
and you got the oxygen as well. It's just like, you know what, we're like, shit, we can't do it at Ellis Park. we've got to get it done at Loftus. So.
But that Loftus game was a brutal game. It was one of, I've never had a non-physical game against the All Blacks, but there was some more spice to that game. It was a very brutal game.
You could see the All Black forwards at that final whistle. There was a collapse close to the line. You were staring at the referee. We'd been looking at the footage and just waiting for that whistle to go, and the forwards just collapsed after that game.
Well, yeah, it was just wave after wave, you know, like what we were doing was we were trying to change history, and with Springboks, you know, these guys were trying to protect their history, and both sides just threw absolutely everything they had at each other, you know, because it meant so much. And look, whether or not a lot of that tackling we're doing in the last 5 minutes is legal, we got away with it, you know, like just diving in at the knees and that sort of stuff. But it was just every man for himself, you know, and the way, the exhaustion, you know, of the constant time that we were defending our line. Just, physically nobody had anything left, you know. We were absolutely spent.
Kobus, looking back at that test, Hugh Bladen was commentating, and he mentioned that All Black pack had started 8 consecutive tests together. There was some very, very special players. You've mentioned Sean Fitzpatrick, but in the second row, Ian Jones and Robin Brooke, they became really tough adversaries for you.
No, it was mostly the guys that we played the previous year in the World Cup in the final as well, majority. But very experienced players, as you would have said, experienced combinations, and a couple of youngsters like Justin coming into the group. But the majority were guys that's been around and well versed in absorbing pressure, because that's what it was. It was a massive pressurized game.
And for a young scrum half, you mentioned there'd been 2 retirements after the World Cup in your position. You'd gone on the end of your tour for the All Blacks, but now to play behind that pack. Yeah. With so much on the line, that must have been special.
It certainly was, you know, and I just feel very lucky that I started my All Black career with that forward pack in particular. You know, like, I remember being really nervous and at the end of '95, because I came into the All Black squad then when we went on an end-of-year tour, and those Ant Strawn and Graham Bashop retired, so I got called up as a youngster, and the last test match I got selected to play my first test, and it's always nervy, you know. I was a nervous guy at the best of times. For all 81 test matches, I was nervous, you know, but that was good, because that was what got the juices going, you know that you're out there and you've got to perform. But I do remember sitting down quite nervous, because, you know, I'm doing the anthem and the Haka for the first time, and I'm going out and representing my family and my friends and all the kids and that I played my rugby with, you know, that I didn't want to let them down. But when I looked around that shed and I saw Olo Brown, Sean Fitzpatrick, Craig Dowd, Robin Brooke, Ian Jones, Michael Jones, Zinzan Brooke, Josh Confield, I felt pretty good. I think we'll be all right today.
You mentioned Zinzan Brooke, a crucial moment in that Loftus test. You're 4 points ahead. You get the call from your famous number 8, and you do what you're told. Give me the ball.
Well, it didn't kind of play out like that, because Mertz and I had a little call that we had for drop goals, which was, you know, we didn't see drop goals as a 100%er. We saw them more as a 50%er. So the call was 50. So every time that we'd be practicing it at training or whatever, and I heard 50, 50, 50, I knew that it was Mertz in the pocket. Zinny must have been sneaking around and eavesdropping on our little call. So he actually put himself in that position behind me, and I thought it was our first 5, which was Simon Colhame at the time, and John Preston was also on the field, but I didn't know it was Zinny. So he's going, Marshy, 50-50, Marshy. So you see when I go around and turn to give the pass, when I look and I see it's Zinny and he's standing there in the pocket, his big head is there, and I'm like, oh shit, like that. I mean, my head comes way up like that. I go like this, because it's too late, I'm already through the pass. But if, you know, because I didn't really want him to be doing that. And I just went, oh no, he's going to have a drop goal, and boom, he hit it. And I thought, actually, that's got a chance. And then I was like, right down the middle, I was like, yes, Zinny. But no, I certainly wasn't expecting him to be there. Yeah. But he had picked up on our call.
Kobus, let's talk about this current tour, the first time in 30 years that there's a 3-test match tour. In fact, there's a 4th test in the USA to add something a little bit different. But some franchise games we saw in 96 and 76 when the All Blacks were here. They went and played some of the provincial teams. You went to some interesting places.
We did.
In 96. But how important do you think this is, this concept, reviving the concept? We see it every 4 years in Australia, New Zealand, and South Africa, British and Irish Lions tour. But to have this reignited.
I'm a huge advocate of this. I love tours. I think it's a crucial part of any not young rugby player coming into to learn the culture of a team, what the history is about. A tour is the absolute place to do that. They get bred into it. They get sort of forced into this this machine that shows them what All Black rugby is about, what Springbok rugby is about, and nothing better than a tour. And if I was living outside South Africa, I would love to tour South Africa, same as I loved touring New Zealand because of the passion and the people involved. And I'm glad there is provincial teams involved. I would love to have seen maybe a couple of games more of the smaller unions, the Pumas and the Boland, and in the sort of rural areas where the people absolutely breathe, live, eat rugby, as you guys know, and the same in New Zealand, and to bring the game to those guys. But this is a start. I think it's a great start. I hope it's here to stay for a very long time, because tours is an absolute must for rugby.
And you've had some cynics. There's always cynics, because in this age of social media, everybody's got an opinion, whether they've got a face or a name or not. Some are questioning the fact, how can South Africa and New Zealand say this is the greatest rivalry? But the stats don't lie, do they? If you look at 10 World Cups, 7 victories between the two countries, and if you look at current world rankings, it stacks up.
Absolutely. It is a no-brainer, really. And I'm just sad it took us so long to realize us and start bringing tours back. I know the program is full. It's this tournament after that tournament, but I'd rather get rid of one of the tournaments and do the tours. 1 year to South Africa, the All Blacks, and we the next year to them. I mean, that's what every youngster in this country aspires to, is to play for the green and gold, but to play the All Black. No disrespect to the Wallabies and the English and the French. I mean, those are great tests as well. But there is something special. There always has been something special between us and these guys, and that will stay like that forever.
Part of that something special, Justin mentioned doing the anthem and the Haka for the first time. You faced the All Blacks for the first time in a Rugby World Cup final at Ellis Park. The epic Haka and Jonah Lomu advancing on his direct opposite number. James Small and Kobus Wiese just...
They were not that bad. I'll tell you which was a scary Haka was with Billy Bush, when he was playing with his beard, and he was a mean mother, Billy Bush, against the Northwestern Cape. I thought he scared the bejesus out of them that day before they even got to the field. But no, look, I've always loved the Haka. I think it's a great part of world rugby. I respect the Haka. I know what it means to these guys. It's part of New Zealand culture, part of New Zealand rugby culture. And funny enough, a short story, we got this crazy note in the hotel. I don't know how they got past security, but it was this guy calling himself a pastor so-and-so, and he said he would like to bring us under our attention that we not face the Haka because it's demonic. And I thought to myself, well, I thought about the Haka in many ways, but never demonic. Knowing what it means and knowing the history about it, and we had a discussion in the kitchen, guys, what do you think? And I said, no, guys, it's disrespectful not to face the Haka. And I hate it when teams sort of do their own little thing there. Face the challenge, absorb the challenge, take the challenge on and use that energy. And it was never I got a little bribe from James Small, to stand in front of him that he doesn't have to face Jonah. But I thought it was an awesome Haka. They all are awesome, but that one was maybe because it was against the All Blacks at Ellis Park in South Africa, our first time back in world rugby, in World Cup rugby. It was with a packed Ellis Park. It was just incredible.
Justin, a special moment on this particular tour, if we fast forward 30 years, the All Blacks facing the Sharks, Ma'a Nonu having just arrived in Durban to take up a sort of player mentor position there. And he responds to Kamate with his own version of Kapoa Pango, accepting the challenge from former teammates, posing one of his own. It was unbelievably special.
Yeah, it was. Look, and for him to have the courage to do it, but he also went through the process where he spoke with Tana Umanga and filtered his thoughts of what he wanted to do through them to make sure that they were okay with him performing an All Black haka when he's not in an All Black jersey. So he went down the proper pathway to make them aware of that, and then, like I said, to have the courage to front up against 23 All Blacks staring back at him and do a haka that way, it takes a lot of guts, and he did it with passion, and he did it on his own, and I think it was massively well received by everybody that saw it, including all those lucky people that are there at the stadium, but equally the All Blacks, and that's all the messaging that's come out from it. So, not something that, say, myself or Andrew Mertens would probably be able to do, given the lack of ferocity in our hakas in the day. But I thought it was an incredible moment. Never seen anything like that ever before. It was pretty special.
And given what happened to the relationship post-COVID between South African rugby and Australasian rugby, if I include Australia and New Zealand, and it led to the demise of Super Rugby as we knew it. So for a number of these All Blacks, this is their first time in South Africa. What will this tour mean to their rugby education, if I can call it that, their life experience through rugby?
It'll just show them that this is absolutely what you put the boots on for to come to South Africa, and I see it nothing other than the Springboks being our greatest rivals, and if you ever want to test yourself in an All Black jersey, it's putting that jersey on and going out and playing at Ellis Park, at Loftus, in Cape Town, wherever it might be, for those young players to be here, to be on this soil as an All Black, given the history and the stats show that there's just nothing really between these two sides. Over 100 years, we are so close to each other in terms of win-loss ratios and stuff that this is the ultimate in rugby, and to be able to come here and win, that's the hardest thing in the game. It is the hardest thing you can do in rugby, is to come here and beat the Springboks on their own soil.
And given that, Kobus, given that history, the fact that Justin and Sean Fitzpatrick and that team of 96 were the only team to have done it, how important does that first test at Ellis Park become in terms of the All Blacks getting some belief that they can replicate that achievement?
I think it's crucial. The first test will set the tone and will show us where we're going. I think the All Blacks, from a South African point of view, the current squad here is quietly confident, which I expected nothing less. The first shots being fired on Saturday at Ellis Park, and call me biased, but in my opinion, a packed Ellis Park is probably the greatest stadium in the world to play in, with the atmosphere and the intimidation and so forth. And it's been a field that's kind to South Africa in many ways, like Eden Park is kind to the All Blacks, and it's seen as the sort of spiritual home. I think it's going to be a massive atmosphere, and it will set the tone for the rest of the series. And I'm glad there's 4 test matches. So I'm looking forward to a great one.
And that said, Marshy, although the All Blacks did lose at Ellis Park in 2024, there are players in the squad who got a victory there.
Yeah.
When Ian Foster's job was on the line, 2022, they responded brilliantly to their defeat at Umbombela, and they got a win at Ellis Park. That's an important ingredient in this.
It is, because it shows you that with the right attitude and the right game plan in particular, on the day, that you can win at Ellis Park. And what they will know from that performance, and I remember that performance well, was it was near on perfect. It was immaculate the way that they played, and the execution into the game plan was, pivotal in that. You got to go out there with a mindset of, this is how you're going to play, and they did it, like I said, near on to perfection that day, and that's what it takes. That's how good you have to be to beat the Springboks at Ellis Park. You have to be so perfect in everything that you do, and I think that's a lot of the messaging that's coming out of the All Blacks camp. They're still not happy, and Dave Rennie has said that openly. I'm not happy with our error rate. I'm not happy with our execution and kick strategy at times, and other areas, and they're still putting 50 points on teams. But he realises what it takes to beat this juggernaut that is the Springboks at the moment. You know, back-to-back World Cups in their trophy cabinet, number one team in the world, depth like never ever before. You got to be very good.
You know, depth has been something we've all spoken about in the context of the Springboks, Kobus, and in a 4-test series over 4 consecutive weekends with travel involved and the physicality, the intensity at which the series is going to be played, depth is surely going to play a role.
Absolutely. The ABs are struggling with a couple of injuries, which must be a worry to them, because on a tour like this, when it's physical every game, doesn't matter if it's a provincial game or you're playing the test match, you need to have your best players available at all time. But then again, injury is also shown in history that it opens doors for other people, and there's always talent coming through. The talent factory in New Zealand and South Africa will never stop to seize. It just keeps on producing, and hungry people that needs that gap, and sometimes an injury opens that door for the new All Black or new Springbok to make a name for himself.
Well, there is just so much to look forward to, so much excitement, so much anticipation. I have to ask the two of you, though, after that piece of history, in both 1995 and 96, how special to just reconnect as opponents? Or was it not nice to see Marshy at all?
No, it is. No, we as forwards don't have problems with the backs. We have forwards with the other forwards.
Sure, good. I'm relieved about that. That's for sure. But no, look, it's just great. You know, like Kobus was there. He knows what happened at Loftus. You know, he was part of the Springbok side that you know we both have said. You know, the physicality, the attitude into that game was incredible, and the good thing about Springbok and All Black we have great respect for each other. You know, we want to literally rip each other's heads off on the field, no doubt about it. And you give everything you've got when you do play against each other. But you know, off the field, because we're so like-minded, we love sharing a beer and having a chat. You know. And that's been the same since forever. And I think that shows what the special relationship we have between both countries is all about. You know, that we can go out and go hard at each other over 80 minutes, and then we can go to the bar and have a beer and talk about it, you know.
Well, there's certainly going to be plenty of chat over the next 4 weeks, and I suspect the odd beer as well. It's been great to be in conversation with Kobus Wiese and Justin Marshall, reminiscing around the last test match tour by the All Blacks of South Africa in 1996. We are set to go for the rugby's greatest rivalry series, and all of those games will be on SuperSport, your World of Champions, and we will be there with the What Goes On Tour vodcast midweek and post-game for the entire series. Thanks for watching. Give us a like, give us a comment, and continue to give us your support for this platform. We generated some wonderful engagement across all digital platforms last year. We appreciate that, and keep it coming. Until next time, cheerio.
Rugby's greatest rivalry, live, only on SuperSport.